The ice in my glass had melted by the time her headlights swept across the living room wall. 11:43 p.m. Third Tuesday in a row. I didn't move from the chair. Just sat there in the dark and watched the light pass. My name is Carver. I'm 51 years old. For 19 years, I built two things with everything I had: a family and a business. Both seemed solid from where I was standing. Turns out I wasn't standing where I thought. My wife Celine and I started Carver Development Group out of our kitchen 12 years ago, the same month our son Kieran turned 4. Our daughter Darcy had just started middle school. The company was small at first. Residential renovations, modest margins, everything reinvested. By the time Darcy left for Boulder 3 years ago, we had 17 employees, a design office in Denver's Rhino district, and a reputation for commercial builds that came in on time and under budget. Celine had grown into the client relations side of the business over the years. She managed our hospitality budget, hosted investor luncheons, kept the social calendar moving. She had a warmth that made people feel heard in a room full of noise. I used to tell her she was the reason clients signed. That fall, we were 6 weeks from breaking ground on our largest project, a $14 million mixed-use development in the Rhino corridor. Residential units above, commercial retail below, underground parking, rooftop terrace. 18 months of planning and 2 rounds of city approvals had gone into it. We had a collaborative architect on board, a firm called Vail Architecture Partners, brought in for their city relationships and their portfolio. Their principal, a man named Langston Veal, had been embedded in the project for 5 months. From the outside, everything looked exactly right. That's what I kept telling myself in October, that everything looked right, even when something in my chest said otherwise. The first thing I noticed was the earrings. Celine came home from a client dinner at 11:15, wearing gold hoops I didn't recognize. She'd left with the pearl drops I'd given her for our 15th anniversary. I told myself I was imagining things. I wasn't. The second thing was a receipt that came through our shared business inbox. Dinner for 2 at Elway's on 17th, $340, categorized as client entertainment, no client name attached. I checked the calendar. No client meeting that evening. I checked the next week. Another charge. Boutique hotel in Lodoo, a Tuesday night. I want to say something plainly before I go further, because it matters. My marriage had not been good for a while. Celine and I had drifted in the slow way that happens when two people stop choosing each other deliberately. Not from cruelty, just from neglect. 6 months before any of this, I had asked her if she wanted to try counseling. She said things weren't that bad. I didn't push harder than I should have. I know my part in the distance between us. But there is a long distance between a marriage that has gone cold and a marriage that finances an affair on the company card. Those are not the same problem. I spent 4 days being methodical. I'm a detail person by training. I've been reading contracts and project plans for 20 years. I applied the same approach. I pulled 3 months of company Amex statements, 14 separate transactions over 10 weeks, hotels, restaurants, 1 charge at a jewelry store on Larimer Street, logged as a client gift. Every transaction fell on a Tuesday or Thursday. I cross-referenced with the GPS logs from Celine's company vehicle. We used a fleet management system for insurance purposes. Both our cars enrolled. On 6 of those Tuesday evenings, her car had been parked at the Kimpton Hotel on 14th Street for 3 to 4 hours at a stretch. I sat at my desk the night I finished and stared at everything I'd assembled. Not in anger, in something quieter and harder. I thought about the 19 years. The early mornings when the company was nothing and we were fighting to make rent on the office space. The nights Darcy had a fever and we took shifts, sleeping on her bedroom floor. The trip to Yellowstone before Kieran started high school, the last real vacation any of us had. I thought about all of it and felt the full weight of it, the genuine grief of it. And then I called my attorney. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "Pull the collaboration agreement with Veal Architecture." Why? Pull it. Call me back in an hour. I pulled it. Page 7. A conflict of interest clause, and beneath it, a clause covering conduct that created reputational or financial risk to Carver Development. I had insisted on both when we drafted the agreement in the spring. Langston's attorney had pushed back on the second one, and we'd kept it in anyway. When I called back, my attorney said, "If what you're telling me is accurate and the person she's been meeting is Veal, he's in material breach. You can terminate his firm's contract for cause. No buyout. And you should be doing it before he realizes you know." I thanked him and told him to start drafting. Then I waited for Saturday morning. Darcy was home for the weekend from Boulder. Kieran had a wrestling meet across town. The house would be quiet by 9. I made coffee. I put 2 mugs on the kitchen table. I waited. Celine came downstairs in her robe, reached for her mug, and smiled automatically. 19 years of muscle memory. Then she looked at my face and the smile faded. "Sit down, please," I said. I slid the folder across the table. She looked at it, but didn't open it. Her hand stayed in her lap the way someone's hands stay still when they're deciding how to play, a hand they've already lost. "Company Amex statements," I said. 3 months. Cross-referenced with the GPS logs from your car and our fleet system. My attorney has also reviewed our collaboration agreement with Veal Architecture. Pierce. Let me finish. I kept my voice level. 14 charges over 10 weeks. Hotels, restaurants, a jewelry purchase logged as a client gift. Every transaction on a Tuesday or Thursday. All falsified as business expenses. That's embezzlement, Celine. That's not a gray area. She opened the folder. I watched her scan the first page. "It got out of hand," she said quietly. "I know how this looks. I know exactly how it looks. Because I know who you were with." She set the papers down carefully. "Langston Veal," I said. "The Kimpton on 14th. 6 documented evenings over 10 weeks. He's been embedded in our largest active project for 5 months, and he is now in material breach of our collaboration agreement." I paused. "The termination notice is already drafted." She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice had a rawness in it that I think was genuine. "I didn't plan for it to happen. I know that doesn't matter. I know that's what people say." "I believe you didn't plan it," I said. "I also believe you made the same choice 10 weeks in a row. Our marriage has been hard, I know. I asked you to go to counseling 6 months ago. You said things weren't that bad. I let that sit there." She flinched. "I'm not saying that to punish you," I said. "I'm saying it because I tried, and I didn't try hard enough either. But what you did isn't a response to what we didn't fix together. It's a separate choice, and you made it." Then came the tears. Genuine at first, I think, and then something more deliberate. Promises to end it immediately, to pay back the expenses herself, to leave the business side of things entirely if that's what it took. She said she'd do anything if I would just give us another chance. When that didn't move me, she shifted. Said I had been emotionally absent for years. That the company had always come before the family. That she had felt invisible in her own life. Some of that was true, and I didn't argue it. When she said, "Langston made me feel like I actually existed again," I stood up and poured the rest of my coffee down the sink. "You can stay with your sister while we work out the details," I said, setting the mug in the drying rack. "I'll have the separation agreement to you by Wednesday. I want you out by Sunday evening. The kids hear from both of us." Calmly, without theater. I walked out of the kitchen. Monday morning. I was reviewing the final draft of the termination letter at my desk when my office manager knocked and opened the door. With a look on her face I'd never seen before. "Langston Veal is in the lobby," she said. "Says it's urgent." The room didn't tilt. If anything, it settled. "Send him in."
See,
He walked in the way certain men walk when they believe they're holding something you need. Sat down across from my desk without waiting to be invited. Said he thought we should talk before things became neither of us wanted. I let him build the case. He went through the logic methodically. The Reno project was 6 weeks from groundbreaking. His firm held the design contract. Pulling them now would push the timeline back months, cost me well over $200,000 in carrying costs minimum. He said he wasn't there to threaten, just to be practical. That we were both professionals and could keep the business relationship separate from the personal complications. That he respected me too much not to come here in person. He said man to man twice. When he finished, I reached into my desk drawer and slid a single document across to him. He picked it up. I watched his eyes move across the page. It was the termination letter, already signed, citing sections 7.4 and 9.1 of our collaboration agreement, conflict of interest, and conduct creating reputational risk to Carver development, both triggered by documented use of company resources in connection with a relationship involving a principal of the contracting party. My attorney had worked through the weekend. The letter had been delivered to Langston's firm at 8 a.m. that morning, simultaneously to his 3 managing partners and to the city's project oversight liaison. This went out 90 minutes ago, I said. I'm informing you personally as a professional courtesy. He read it twice. The easy confidence drained from his face in stages. The timeline. I've already identified a replacement firm. Fort Collins, strong rhino experience, available immediately, already familiar with the existing plans. My attorney estimates a 3-week transition. We break ground on schedule. The city liaison is going to want to know why a principal at a contracted architecture firm created a documented conflict of interest with the project client. I stood up. I imagine your managing partners will have the same question, and I imagine they'll be looking carefully at your other city-affiliated projects in the process. He left without another word. I sat back down and called my attorney. He came in. Of course he did. How'd it go? The way it goes, I said. When someone realizes the cards they were planning to play were never theirs to begin with. Telling the kids was a different kind of hard. Darcy was easier, if easier is even the right word. She was 22 and she had sensed for a long time that something in the house wasn't right. She found me in the garage Sunday evening reorganizing shelves I didn't need to reorganize. I told her the truth directly. Separation. Affair. The business side handled. She stood in the doorway and processed it without falling apart, the way she'd always processed things, from the inside out. Are you okay? She asked. Not yet, I said. Working on it. She walked over and hugged me the way adults hold someone they're genuinely worried about. Tight and deliberate. And without any performance in it. What do you need from me? She said. Help with Kieran. He's going to feel this differently. She nodded. She already knew. Telling Kieran was the hardest hour of that whole period. He was 16. Closer to his mother than to me. Not by my choice. Just by personality. He was softer where she was soft. He was going to feel this in the body before he could think his way through it. I sat with him on the back porch and kept it simple. Your mother and I are separating. She made a choice I can't forgive. Not one part of this is your fault. He didn't say anything for a long time. Just stared out at the yard. Did you try to fix it? He finally asked. I did, not enough maybe, but I tried. Why isn't that enough then? I looked at my son, 16, already an inch taller than me, all quiet moods and long silences. Because some things don't get fixed by trying harder. They get fixed by being honest with each other, and we weren't. He went inside without much else. The absence of a hug hurt more than anything else that whole week. But an hour later, he came back out and sat down next to me on the porch. Didn't say anything, just sat there. I put my hand on his shoulder and he let me. That was enough for that night. Celine left Sunday evening with 2 suitcases. She told Kieran she loved him and left before Darcy had a chance to say much. Darcy watched from the kitchen window as the car turned out of the driveway. She didn't apologize, Darcy said. No, I said. Not to you, not to us. I didn't have an answer for that. Some things people just don't do. Her father called me 2 weeks later. I had known the man for 21 years, a retired civil engineer from Colorado Springs, mid-70s, never wasted words. She told me what happened, he said. I wanted to call and say I'm sorry for her choices, for what it put you and those kids through. You don't owe me that apology, I said. No, he said, but I wanted to give it. A pause. Those grandchildren need people standing by them. I want to be one of those people if you'll allow it. I'll allow it, I said. They need their grandfather. By February, Langston's firm had been removed from 2 additional city-affiliated projects pending a conduct review. I heard it through a colleague in passing and didn't go looking for more. Their problems weren't mine to track. Kieran turned a corner sometime in March. He'd had a rough stretch of wrestling season. Distracted, low energy, the kind of absence his coaches noticed. Then one Saturday he came home from a meet, and his face looked different, lighter. "I won today," he said. "Third time this year, but it felt different." Different how? He thought about it. Like, I was actually there, like I wasn't somewhere else the whole time it was happening. That was the first moment I felt certain we were going to be okay. Not fine. Okay. That's the honest version. Darcy navigated her relationship with her mother, in her own way and on her own terms. I didn't ask questions. That was right. That was between them. The Reno project opened in September. 11 days off the original groundbreaking target, close enough for anyone counting. I stood on the rooftop terrace, evening before the official opening, and looked out at the city and thought about the man who had sat in a dark living room in October, watching headlights cross the wall, feeling, somewhere in his chest, that thing you feel before you have the courage to name it. That man had been lied to for months. He had loved someone who had stopped choosing him. He had built something that another person had tried to use as leverage against him. And then he had handled it, quietly, methodically, without rage and without theater. Not because he didn't feel the loss, he felt all of it. Every day of those months, the real weight of 19 years rearranged. A family in a new shape that nobody had asked for. A life that no longer fit its former outline. But feeling something and being governed by it are two entirely different things. I had 2 kids, watching how their father responded to being betrayed. That mattered more than anything else on earth. Kieran told me much later that what he remembered most from those months was not that I had been angry, but that I had been steady. "You were sad," he said, "but you still showed up, every single time." That's what I want him to carry forward. That's what I want both of them to carry. That when the ground gives out beneath you, you don't give out with it. You find out what you're actually made of, and then you build from there. Celine has a condo in Cherry Creek now. From what I understand, things with Langston are complicated in the way that things built on the wreckage of other things tend to be. I don't follow it. That is her chapter, and she is the one writing it. Mine has better light now, better air, and for the first time in a long time, the pen is in my hand.